What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Mighty Blues and welcome back to another live stream. I hope you all are doing well. It is Monday evening. Now, this live stream was originally supposed to be the game review to Everton's 1-1 draw with Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday afternoon. However, I've decided to push that live stream to tomorrow instead. I understand, obviously, that that's a few days after the game, and obviously, you know, games become a little bit stale a couple of days later, but it's for a couple of reasons. One of them being that there's been a little bit of breaking news over the course of the last couple of hours or so regarding investment into Everton Football Club and MSP securing a exclusivity deal with Everton regarding investment, and some breaking news surrounding Doucouré's future as well. But also, just because of the importance of tonight's game, really, between Newcastle United and Leicester City, I tweeted out earlier today about how I'm feeling ahead of that game, and I'll be brutally honest with you, I'm absolutely shitting myself, to be honest. Quite a similar feeling to the one that I had yesterday, watching West Ham United versus Leeds. Again, I said this, I think, on the player ratings. I've not supported this many clubs ever in my life. I think I've supported about 6 or 7 Premier League clubs this season, as well as Everton, purely because they've been so many important games that have a direct impact on Everton's season and whether or not Everton will be playing Premier League football next season. And this one tonight also is one of those. And yes, I understand that, Leicester City are in a dreadful run of form at the moment, and I understand Leicester fans are thinking, there's absolutely no chance of them getting a result tonight, and I understand Newcastle obviously are in brilliant form, had a brilliant season, could secure Champions League football with a win tonight. They're at home, it's at St James's Park, it's been a real fortress at St James's Park this season, and I know that everything points in the direction of Newcastle United winning big and ultimately securing their Champions League football, and obviously Leicester City losing and pretty much guaranteeing their relegation, albeit, obviously they'll be relying on Everton and Leeds to both lose on the final day. But it's just never the case, is it? In football, it's just never the case. And, for everybody that has said to me, oh yeah, but Leicester are in awful form and Newcastle are great at home and they'll never go there and they'll never get anything, I just keep thinking back to a couple of weeks ago when, we previewed the game against Brighton, and I remember sitting here saying if Everton can get a point out of this game, then it will be a really, really good result. And I had a number of people on the live comments, both Everton fans and non-Everton fans, saying, I was deluded even thinking we could go there and get a point, and, we were never going to get a point, and we were going to get absolutely battered, and this was one of them games that we just had to forget about. And obviously we went there and we won 5-1, so, maybe I'm just worrying for worrying's sake, and maybe I'll be sat here tomorrow, breathing a sigh of relief because Newcastle United have absolutely wiped the floor with Leicester, but this is football, and strange things happen in football, and you just never know, and I just got a horrible, horrible feeling about this game tonight. So we are going to do the game review to the Wolves game tomorrow, once we know, obviously, what the result is tonight, and, Everton's Premier League status will either be in our own hands by this time tomorrow, meaning that a win against Bournemouth on Sunday would keep us up, or if Leicester do what seems like the impossible and win tonight, then of course it would be out of our hands, because if Leicester are to win on Sunday, then they're at home, then they would stay up, I believe, on goal difference, and Everton would go down. So yeah, we're going to push that review to tomorrow, because I think it really does change my outlook on whether or not that was a good result on Saturday. If Leicester lose, then obviously we'll have been the only team in this sort of relegation 3 that will have picked up a point over the weekend, and it would look like a really important point. If Leicester win, then it's obviously different circumstances. Another thing I just want to get out there before we continue is, yes, I am fully aware that I've got cream on my face. I understand that there will be a number of comments of people saying, Cam, you've got a little bit of food left on your face from your dinner, or Cam, do you know what that is on your face? You've left a bit of cream there from your donut or whatever. No, I'm currently suffering from impetigo. I get it pretty much every year at various different times in the year. It's usually when I'm stressed at the very most, and as I'm sure we all are at the minute, extremely stressed. So it's impetigo. The cream on it is antibiotic cream. I know it's there. I can't do anything about it. But yeah, anyway, let's get into today's subjects. As I said, we were going to do the game review, but that will be tomorrow, because there has been some breaking news revolving Everton's potential takeover. Alan Myers tweeted around about an hour ago that bear with me 2 seconds and let me get it up. American investment company MSP Sports Capital have signed an exclusivity agreement with Everton owner Farhad Moshiri as the club head into a crucial weekend which sees a three-way battle to stay in the Premier League. The New York-based company has been in discussions with Moshiri for months and is now in pole position to provide investment into the club. Sky Sports News have been told that the deal is progressing well. However, there is still work to be done before it is officially announced. Now, again, this report from Sky and from Alan Myers was taken and, obviously reported by various other different news outlets. I believe The Athletic have reported it with Paddy Boylan. I believe the BBC have reported it as well. I think Mail Sport reported it as well, but Mail Sport, I think, tried to sort of clickbait the headline to suggest that the deal could be done today. Well, given, as I said, the actual article from Sky Sports states that, there's still work to be done, but it is progressing well. I highly doubt that it is going to be done today. Alan Myers also goes on to say the Everton owner is adamant that the main focus this week should be on Sean Dyche and his team preserving the club's Premier League status when they play Bournemouth on Sunday, with two of the three clubs, including Leeds and Leicester, still with a possibility of being relegated. He then says the new investment will be welcomed by Everton fans who have called for changes at the top of the football club for quite some time. And that is absolutely right from Alan Myers there. As I said, this was obviously put out there by The Athletic. Paddy Boylan says MSP Sports Capital secure exclusivity in investment talks with Everton. Still a way to go to complete the deal, but said to be progressing well. BBC have also reported something very, very similar as well. So it seems like MSP now are in the driving seat to provide investment into Everton Football Club. We sat here a couple of days ago and we spoke about the reports that 777 Capital we're on the brink of completing a full takeover of Everton Football Club, and that, again, the Mail were reporting that could have been done as near as next week, etc. We obviously found out from doing a little bit more digging and reading a little bit more into that they were premature, reports, and whilst 777 were definitely interested in investing in Everton, any report suggesting that a deal was done and yet and set to be announced was incredibly premature. So it seems, as we said last week, that 777 and MSP Sports Capital have been the front runners in this. It's always, for me, seemed like MSP Sport Capital have been the leaders in terms of the rumours and the reports that we're reading, and they've always been the more likely out of the two to secure the investment. This seems more of an investment situation as opposed to a complete takeover, which probably would mean Farhad Moshiri remains at the football club. However, if an investment, let's say, they invest a certain amount into the football club this summer, or this sort of financial year, then that investment may increase over the course of the next few years, and it may end up turning into a full takeover. It just wouldn't be a full takeover straight away. One thing that it is worth noting is an exclusivity agreement does not mean that this situation is now done and dusted, and that the deal is done and it's MSP who are going to be investing in us, and 777 are completely out of it. I remember less than a year ago, maybe even 6 months ago, to be honest, with how long this season has felt, it was probably only about 3 weeks ago, but I remember a few months ago, Peter Kenyon's consortium had, they had agreed a exclusivity agreement with Everton for a potential takeover, and obviously nothing come from that. It basically just means that there's sort of a gentleman's handshake between the football club and the investors, that they are in the front seat in the in the lead for investment into the football club. It doesn't guarantee that this deal is done. It doesn't guarantee that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. All as it means is that they are in the front seat now, and there's almost been, as I said, an agreement by Farhad Moshiri with those at MSP that they effectively have got the choice. If they want to invest, then they can invest, and obviously if they don't want to invest, it will move on to somebody else. Whether this will mean wholesale change for Everton, it sort of has to. I can't see a massive New York-based company coming into Everton Football Club investing such large amounts. Now, obviously, we haven't, read any sort of specifics in terms of how much of a percentage they'll invest or how much money they'll invest. There was rumours and reports that it was around about £600 million for a full takeover from 777. Whether or not that is, a similar amount for MSP, I don't know. If a full takeover £600 million and MSP aren't fully taken over, then you would assume it will be less than that. But obviously those sort of intricacies and intricate details haven't been released yet and aren't necessarily being discussed. But you would like to assume that, given it would mean new investment, given it would mean another company putting their money, their hands in their pockets to provide Everton Football Club with money, that they would want change made at the top of the football club. If MSP have got any clue about, well, football or business, then they will understand that Everton Football Club at the moment is a failing business, and it is a failing business because the people at the top of it have been allowed to ultimately make dreadful decision after dreadful decision after dreadful decision, and if they are continued to be allowed to do that, then this football club will only head one way. And if Everton do manage to survive the drop this season, which still, isn't a guarantee going into the final day of the season, but if they do manage to survive the drop and nothing changes again like it didn't last year, then Everton will be in this same position next season, and we may not be as lucky next season. We might not be as lucky this season. We all sat here last season and said, oh, that was close, we can't afford to let that happen again. We mightn't be as lucky next time, and now we're sat here and it's going down to the last day of the season. So yeah, again, you would like to hope and you would assume that, more people coming into the football club. MSP, of course, will have members of their company on Everton's board, and you would like to hope that that would mean changes at the football club currently, because I highly doubt somebody is going to want to come and pile a load of money into what is a failing business and not want to make change to try and make said failing business into a success. In terms of Farhad Moshiri, it would mean he remains for the minute. Can I see Farhad Moshiri being an Everton Football Club in the next 3 years if MSP are to invest in the football club? No. I can see it being more of a gradual thing as opposed to a sort of full takeover straight away and he walks out the door and we never see him again. I think it would be more of a gradual thing in the sense of that, maybe they invest, I don't know, 20% this season. I'm just picking figures out, by the way, before people go, well, it won't be 20%, that's too much. 20% this season, another 20% next season, and then another, and then it gets, maybe within 3 years, they'll have full control of the football club, and that's when Farhad Moshiri will leave. Let's not forget, by the way, that when Farhad Moshiri first invested into Everton Football Club, he has reinvested since. So I think he owned 49% when he first come into the football club, and now he owns 96% of the football club. So that was a gradual thing, over the years. So yeah, again, it doesn't look like it will see the end of Farhad Moshiri straight away, but what it does look like is it will see the beginning of the end for Farhad Moshiri at Everton, and that for me is only a positive thing, because Farhad Moshiri's time is completely and utterly over. He just is incapable of rebuilding that relationship, in my opinion. And as I said, for MSP to come into the football club, I think one of the first things they almost have to do is make changes or at least sort of request Farhad Moshiri makes changes at that board level. And let's be honest, moves the people on that very clearly aren't capable of sailing this football club into the right direction. As I've just said, this is still quite early days. I know it reads as a headline that might make people think, oh my god, the deal's done, it's it's all over, we've got a new owner, etc, etc. But it isn't quite like that. Like I've just said, it is an exclusivity agreement, which is a positive. But let's not forget, Peter Kenyon and his consortium had an exclusivity agreement with Everton, and that obviously came, of absolutely nothing, didn't it? Because ultimately, that the talks broke down, and the exclusivity agreement meant nothing in the end. So, the BBC's article writes that Everton have reached an exclusivity agreement with New York-based company MSP Sports Capital for investments in the club. Sources have said that the deal is not yet done, but talks are progressing between the two parties over future funding. MSP look to have jumped ahead of 777 partners who have been in talks over the takeover from owner Farhad Moshiri. They report that MSP are believed to be looking for a 25% stake with a preferential share structure, not equity in the club, so would be paid back in interest. 777 have had access to the data room, financial accounts, but have not been prepared to pay a significant price as they have looked at the debt on the balance sheet, which stood at £141.7 million in the latest account. So, yeah, it seems like MSP are seemingly more interested than 777, or seemingly are more interested in investments, and 777 seem more interested in a full takeover, but are hesitant to do that because obviously of the current debt the football club is in. I don't know anything about MSP Sports Capital, I'll be brutally honest, in the same sense as that I don't know anything about 777 partners. BBC have reported that MSP Sports Capital describe themselves as investors in sports teams, leagues and businesses that pursue ambitious, challenging tasks. Their current portfolio includes European clubs such as Brøndby in Denmark, Augsburg in Germany and Estoril of Portugal. Their chairman, Iranian-American billionaire Jam Najafi, is the vice chairman of McLaren and also a minority owner of NBA team Phoenix Suns. He also attended the defeat of Southampton in January at Goodison Park and has a net worth valued at $2.9 billion by the Paddock magazine in 2021. So there's a little bit of I suppose, a background check on MSP. Again, if you were to ask me now how Augsburg are doing in Germany or Brøndby are doing in Denmark, I would not have a clue. I would not have a clue, in the same sense as that if you were to ask me about, the teams that 777 partners own or invest in, I wouldn't have a much clue about them either. So this is good news, because ultimately it means that we are nearing the end of this current regime. Now, that may not mean that Farhad Moshiri walks out the door quicker than maybe some of us expect, but what it would mean is they will be changing the football club, and you would like to hope that would mean the end of people like Bill Kenwright, Denise Barrett-Baxendale in a footballing role at the very, very least, and obviously down the line somewhere Farhad Moshiri, because like I said, the current running of the football club is an absolute disgrace. And I understand people say be careful what you wish for, and it mightn't be a positive change, and MSP might come in and just rinse the club full of money and this, that and the other. They may, and ultimately that's the risk of new ownership, isn't it? The risk of new ownership is always there. Even if we were to go and be bought out by a state-run fund like Newcastle or Manchester City, the risk is that the people buying us, haven't got the foresight to make the right decisions and put the right people in charge. And ultimately, whilst they may have all the money in the world, their decision making might be dreadful, and we may end up in the same position that we're in now. It could happen. It could happen. We could be sitting here in 2 years' time going, oh my God, this is as bad as the Moshiri era. I'm not quite sure we'd be saying it was worse, because I think if the Moshiri era was to carry on in the way in which it is now, I think there'd be no doubt Everton would be relegated, and I think there'd be no doubt Everton would be struggling in the lower league. So I'm not quite sure it can get much worse, but it could very certainly continue. And the people coming in may not be the right people, and they may not make the right decisions, and we may not, improve particularly. However, it could go the other way, and they could come in, they could want to invest, they could want to get the right people in, they could want to make the right decisions, and Everton may, start to actually climb out of this absolute hole that we are currently in at the moment, both physically in terms of the league and obviously metaphorically in terms of the way we're being run as a football club. So yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see on this one. Like I said, the exclusivity agreement is a big bit of news, and it's an interesting bit of news, and it's certainly one worth taking note of. However, it doesn't absolutely guarantee and mean that this deal is done and it's over the line and we've got new owners. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that they're probably now the front runner over 777, and it certainly shows their willingness and their, MSP's, I suppose, willingness to invest in the football club and to be a part of this, because they have made that agreement and clearly they want to have some form of involvement in the future of Everton, which is a positive thing, because, like I said, the current regime and the current board isn't working, so we definitely need change there. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. As I said, whenever we get the latest news and information on that, we will be live on the channel discussing that as well, whether it's a full takeover agreement or whether it's an investment agreement. As I said, at the moment, it is just an exclusivity deal, but it is a positive bit of news going forward, and as I said, I'm sure we'll hear more about this upon the conclusion of the Premier League season and into the summer as well. Another big bit of news that has been reported over the course of the last couple of hours or so is coming from very popular and very reliable journalist Fabrizio Romano. He has said that, bear with me 2 seconds. He has said, "I am understood that Everton have triggered the option clause to extend Abdoulaye Doucouré's contract. The deal will be valid for 1 more year." Now, this has sparked quite a lot of discussion on social media over the last hour or so since it was put out there. Both positive and negative responses, really, and not necessarily negative because people don't believe Abdoulaye Doucouré should be given that contract extension, but more so, I think, a general worry about whether or not Everton will be able to afford a player like Abdoulaye Doucouré if they are relegated. Now, I don't think it's any secret Abdoulaye Doucouré's wage is probably quite significant at the football club. I'm seeing some people talking about £100,000 a week. I don't know whether it is that. I don't know whether it's a little bit less. I'm not quite sure. But one thing's for sure is he's probably one of the highest earners at the football club at the moment. Now, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that if Everton are to be relegated, that we will obviously lose a number of players that are on high wages, players that will demand Premier League football, players like Jordan Pickford, who will likely leave because, again, his status as England's number one will then become, in jeopardy given the seasons that Nick Pope and Alan Ramsdale have had. If he is to be relegated with Everton, then, he probably will be looking elsewhere to keep that sort of, that status as England's number one goalkeeper. Players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, obviously Amadou Onana, and you would have thought Abdoulaye Doucouré would have been on that list as well. I don't particularly have a massive problem with extending Abdoulaye Doucouré's contract. I think Dukes is what he is. Do I think he's a particularly great footballer? No. Do I think he is the best technical footballer I've ever seen at Everton? No. In fact, I think technically he's not very good in terms of his touch or his passing range particularly. But what he is he is effective, and what he is a threat. And we obviously knew, he'd had previous fallings out with the previous manager, Frank Lampard, who completely froze him out of the team and didn't want to play him and didn't want to involve him. And, this was a player who was very, very close to leaving Everton Football Club last summer and in January because of that relationship with Frank Lampard, and, was very nearly on his way out, and nobody really batted an eyelid because of it. But since Sean Dyche has come into the football club, he's used them a lot more. It has to be said, Abdoulaye Doucouré has had a positive impact on that. He scored some really important goals in some really big games. He's been involved in some really important goals in big moments as well. And don't get me wrong, he's had his moments where he's missed chances, or, he had the sending off against Tottenham, which was stupid and very certainly put us in a difficult position for the 3 games that followed that, because we had nobody to come in to replace him. And, like I said, he's had moments where he's looked quite poor. I thought he looked quite poor against Wolves, to be honest, at the weekend. But generally, I think he's had a positive impact on the team and on the results and on the performances since Sean Dyche has come into the football club, which almost means that a contract extension for another season is warranted and is deserved. What my problem is surely Everton shouldn't be looking at any players' contracts, whether it be an extension, whether it be a new contract, whether it be a clause being triggered. Everton shouldn't be focusing on any of that until the Premier League season is concluded, for 2 reasons. One of them, because the focus shouldn't be there. The focus should be on keeping Everton in the Premier League. And 2, because, as I've just said, financially, can we afford to have a midfielder on upwards of 80, 90, £100,000 a week in the Championship? I'm not quite sure. So it definitely screams of a premature decision, not necessarily because I don't think Dukes deserves it. And as I said, if we stay in the Premier League, I don't think there's an awful lot of issue with this. But if we go down, then all of a sudden a problem arises, and if we can't afford to have Abdoulaye Doucouré in the Championship, then we've got to be able to sell him. Whereas if we didn't do the contract, the club could have gone, do you know what? We didn't have to necessarily say this to Abdoulaye Doucouré, but the club could have gone, do you know what? We think he deserves a new contract. We've got no problem with that. He's had a big impact on the team since the new manager's come in. He's worked well. He's scored some goals. He's had some important moments. However, the reality is we simply cannot afford that if we do go down. So what we're going to do is we're going to, as I said, we'll trigger the extension on the auspices that we stay up. If we don't stay up, then, we'll have to look at it a little bit more deeper. And obviously this hasn't been announced yet, so maybe this is just a bit of premature reporting by Fabrizio Romano. But I do think that, if it has been triggered now, and it's done now, and it's dusted, I just think that's a little bit silly by Everton, if I'm being honest. Not because I don't think he deserves it, or I don't think he's had a positive impact, but just because financially, had we have gone down, could we have gotten rid of Abdoulaye Doucouré and maybe gotten another midfielder in who come in and do a similar job on less money and, for a younger player, for example? Probably, yeah. So it puts us in a situation where our hands are tied behind our back a little bit. And as I said, if I was Everton, I wouldn't even be looking at contract extensions or anything like that until the end of the season. And that is on the assumption that Abdoulaye Doucouré absolutely deserves this extension to be triggered. I can see a few people in the comments suggesting that he doesn't even deserve that. I think he's done well recently for what he is. But that's for what he is, and ultimately he's not an unbelievable footballer. And that's why I think some people are suggesting that he doesn't deserve that extension. But again, if this is a bit of premature reporting by Fabrizio Romano, and it's in conversation, but it's not quite been signed yet, and it won't be signed until the season is concluded, then that's fine. But if it has been triggered now, then I just think why not wait for another week? Why did that have to be done today? Why not wait for a week? I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Anyway, that is about all. I think we've spoken about the potential takeover. We've spoken about Abdoulaye Doucouré. As I said earlier on, we will be doing the game review to the Wolves game tomorrow because I'm just absolutely shitting myself for this game between Leicester City and Newcastle United tonight. And this game of football, depending on the result, for me, has an effect on how I feel about the Wolves game. So we'll be back tomorrow with the game review to that Wolves game. Don't forget to look out for that one. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. It does only take a second. And if you are new, don't forget to subscribe. We did do the player ratings a little bit earlier on. If you want to go and check that out, that is up on the channel now. But yeah, massive thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed this. Subscribe if you're new. And we'll see you later.